Welcome back to the channel. Here you'll find the fastest updates on breaking news, shocking secrets, and dramatic predictions for times. The young and the restless. Who will betray whom? What secrets are about to be revealed? And what horrific tragedy awaits the characters in Genoa City? Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us to discover the unmissable developments right now. Welcome back to our channel on this beautiful day where the drama in Genoa City never sleeps and the shadows of betrayal grow longer with every passing moment. We are thrilled to bring you the latest, most explosive developments that threaten to tear two legacy families apart forever. The eternal war between the Abbott and Newman dynasties has always been defined by ruthless corporate takeovers and bitter personal vendettas. But the battlefield is currently shifting into a far more insidious and emotionally devastating territory. At the dark center of this impending catastrophe is Kyle Abbott, a man whose soul has been entirely consumed by an unquenchable thirst for vengeance against the formidable Victor Newman. The once loyal son is now walking a highly dangerous path, willing to sacrifice everything and everyone to see the Newman patriarch fall from his throne. The genesis of this dark transformation lies in the horrific trauma inflicted upon Kyle's mother, Diane Jenkins Abbott. The psychological torture she endured at the hands of the sociopathic doctor, Lawrence Markham, coupled with the violent stabbing of Jack Abbott by a deranged Patty Williams, has left an indelible scar on the Abbott family. While Jack has surprisingly chosen the path of peace, prioritizing Diane's healing over retaliation and calling for a strict ceasefire, Kyle absolutely refuses to lay down his weapons. He views his father's passive stance as a dangerous weakness, a capitulation to a tyrant who has manipulated their lives from the shadows for far too long. Driven by a toxic blend of protective fury and a desperate need to reclaim his family's honor, Kyle has taken the mantle of vengeance upon himself, deciding that Victor Newman must be dismantled at any cost. To execute this monumental takedown, Kyle has identified the ultimate vulnerability within the seemingly impenetrable Newman fortress, and that vulnerability is Victoria Newman. Victoria has always existed in a precarious state of emotional turbulence, constantly oscillating between a desperate desire for her father's absolute approval and a fierce, rebellious need for total independence. Kyle recognized this deep-seated psychological fracture and meticulously crafted a strategy to exploit it. What began as a dangerous corporate alliance, a mutual grievance against Victor's tyrannical control over their respective lives, has rapidly and perilously evolved into something far more intimate and fundamentally destructive. Kyle has weaponized his charm, crossing the sacred line from corporate espionage into a calculated, manipulative romance designed to extract the most guarded secrets of the Newman Empire. Victoria, tragically blinded by the intoxicating allure of this forbidden connection, has walked willingly into Kyle's beautifully constructed trap. Her history is littered with toxic relationships and men who have used her for proximity to the Newman throne, yet she remains profoundly vulnerable to the illusion of genuine affection. Kyle provides her with a temporary sanctuary from the suffocating pressures of her father's expectations, offering her a false sense of empowerment and equal partnership. In these quiet, stolen moments of intimacy, Victoria feels seen and valued for who she is, entirely unaware that she is merely a pawn in a much larger, infinitely more malicious game of chess. Her deep-seated need for emotional validation has completely overridden her typically sharp corporate instincts, leaving her dangerously exposed. The mechanics of Kyle's manipulation are both brilliant and horrifying to witness. He does not demand information aggressively. Instead, he extracts it with surgical precision under the guise of romantic intimacy. During late-night encounters and hushed conversations, Kyle subtly steers the dialogue toward the labyrinthine structure of Newman Enterprises. He casually inquires about highly classified research and development projects, probes for vulnerabilities in their global supply chains, and delicately questions the security protocols guarding their most sensitive digital infrastructure. He frames these inquiries as a shared burden, a way for them to strategize together against Victor's overbearing dominance, making Victoria feel as though they are a united front fighting against a common enemy. In her tragically compromised state, Victoria inadvertently leaks the very intelligence that could bring her father's empire crashing to the ground. She justifies these catastrophic breaches of confidentiality to herself, rationalizing that she is merely leveling the playing field and securing her own autonomy within the company. She convinces herself that sharing this information with Kyle is a necessary evil, a strategic maneuver to keep Victor's ruthless machinations in check. The profound tragedy lies in her absolute ignorance of Kyle's true intentions. She believes they are building a foundation of trust and mutual protection, completely oblivious to the fact that she is actively handing a loaded weapon to an assassin who is patiently waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The psychological toll of this treasonous affair is quietly eroding Victoria's spirit, even if she refuses to acknowledge it. Deep within her subconscious, a creeping guilt threatens to consume her entirely. She is a Newman, raised to protect the family legacy with her very life, yet she is sleeping with the enemy and dismantling the fortress from the inside out. The cognitive dissonance is staggering, forcing her to build elaborate mental defenses to justify her actions. She clings desperately to the illusion of Kyle's love, because facing the reality of her monumental betrayal would shatter her completely. The magnetic pull of this toxic romance has short-circuited her moral compass, trapping her in a downward spiral of deceit from which there appears to be no escape. On the other side of this disastrous equation, Kyle is experiencing a chilling erosion of his own humanity. The noble, fiercely loyal Abbott heir has been replaced by a cold, calculating tactician who views human emotions purely as leverage. He is acutely aware of the devastating emotional destruction he is inflicting upon Victoria, yet his obsessive hatred for Victor Newman completely eclipses any lingering sense of guilt or empathy. Kyle has convinced himself that the ends justify the means, that destroying a woman's life and tearing a family apart is an acceptable price to pay for ultimate justice. This dark descent highlights a terrifying evolution in his character, proving that in his quest to defeat a monster, he is rapidly becoming one himself. The impending catastrophe is exponentially magnified by the presence of Claire, a young woman whose fragile integration into the Newman family is entirely dependent on the maternal stability Victoria provides. Claire has spent her entire life navigating profound isolation and severe psychological trauma, finally finding a semblance of grace and acceptance within the walls of the Newman estate. Her bond with Victoria is the anchor keeping her tethered to reality, a newly formed connection that requires absolute honesty and unwavering support to survive. Furthermore, Claire has harbored her own complex, unspoken feelings of trust and affection for Kyle, viewing him as a rare beacon of understanding in a world that has constantly betrayed her and left her to fend for herself. The shattering of Claire's reality occurs with a devastating quietness that is far more impactful than any screaming match. Blessed with a hyper-rational mind and an acute ability to read the subtle shifts in human behavior, Claire begins to piece together the anomalies. She notices the missing classified documents, the encrypted messages, and the undeniable, lingering physical intimacy between her mother and the man she herself had grown to care for. The exact moment of discovery is not marked by a dramatic explosion, but by a chilling, paralyzing realization that everything she believed about her new life is a meticulously constructed lie. The foundation of her world crumbles instantly, plunging her back into the dark abyss of betrayal and abandonment that she has fought so desperately to escape. The psychological trauma Claire experiences is a profound, dual betrayal that strikes at the very core of her identity. On one hand, she feels completely abandoned by her mother. Victoria, the woman who promised to protect her and prioritize their healing, has selfishly sacrificed their fragile bond for a toxic, treasonous affair. On the other hand, she feels deeply violated by Kyle, a man she trusted and held in high regard, who has callously manipulated the two most important women in the Newman family for his own selfish vendetta. This agonizing realization forces Claire to confront the horrifying truth that she is entirely alone once again, surrounded by people who view her not as a cherished family member, but as collateral damage in their endless, petty corporate wars. Instead of succumbing to a hysterical rage, Claire channels her profound devastation into a chillingly cold, surgical confrontation with Victoria. She does not scream or throw wild accusations. Rather, she systematically dismantles her mother's hypocritical morality with razor-sharp logic. Claire exposes the pathetic reality of Victoria's choices, highlighting how she traded her family's legacy and her daughter's mental health for the illusion of control and the fleeting comfort of a manipulative romance. The deep, quiet disappointment radiating from Claire is infinitely more painful to Victoria than any screaming match could ever be. It is the sound of a mother-daughter bond snapping irreparably, a fracture that no amount of apologies, tears, or desperate pleas can ever hope to heal. Following the devastation of her mother, Claire turns her analytical, unforgiving gaze upon Kyle Abbott. She approaches him not with the fiery jealousy of a scorned lover, but with the profound disappointment of someone who has seen the monster hiding beneath the charming mask. Claire strips away his righteous anger, exposing the hollow, selfish, and destructive core of his vendetta against Victor. She warns him that this path of manipulation and corporate espionage will not bring him the justice he seeks. It will only result in the total annihilation of everyone involved, including himself. She forces Kyle to look in the mirror and acknowledge the horrifying collateral damage of his actions, leaving him to grapple with the chilling reality of his own darkness and the lives he is actively destroying. The fallout from this catastrophic sequence of events leaves Genoa City standing on the precipice of an unprecedented corporate and familial war. Kyle now possesses the ultimate Newman secrets, holding the digital keys that could dismantle Victor's empire piece by piece. Victoria is left paralyzed by the crushing weight of her guilt, entirely isolated, and forced to mourn the loss of her daughter's respect and love. The Newman family structure, already weakened by internal strife and addiction, has been compromised from the inside out by one of its most trusted leaders. The damage is irreversible, and the emotional wreckage strewn across the battlefield is a testament to the devastating power of misplaced trust and unchecked vengeance. As the dust settles on these shattered relationships, a terrifying silence falls over the Newman ranch, but it is the kind of silence that precedes a massive, world-altering explosion. Kyle stands ready to launch his catastrophic attack with the stolen data, believing he has finally outsmarted the great Victor Newman and secured his ultimate revenge. But in the dark, manipulative world of Genoa City, nothing is ever as it seems. Has Victoria's treason gone truly unnoticed? Or has the ruthless patriarch been watching from the shadows all along, allowing this betrayal to unfold, only to set a much deadlier trap? The pieces are in motion, the loyalties are broken, and as Kyle prepares to pull the trigger on his ultimate revenge, one must wonder if he is aiming at Victor or staring directly down the barrel of his own destruction.